Hey there, it's Bijal, and welcome to another episode of Be Epic today. And I'm really happy to have a dear friend of mine. We met, probably 8, 9 years ago. I believe we met in Thailand, but we stayed in touch, and we've got a lot of things in common. And so, first of all, Nobby, welcome to the show.
Hey, Bijal, happy to be here. Good, always good to see you, friend.
Yeah, and and so let me just kind of share how this kind of came about. So yesterday I did a Facebook Live about working with virtual assistants, and I have 10 years experience working with virtual assistants, and Nobby also had an outsourcing service as well, but it didn't quite go to plan. So we're going to just do some authentic sharing, peel back the curtains a little bit about the good side and often the dark side of outsourcing. And maybe you'll learn a few things about working with virtual assistants that will save you the pain that we've both experienced, both from a client perspective and working with virtual assistants as well. Because while, yes, you can outsource a lot of stuff for $5 an hour, if you get it wrong, it can cost you a fortune. And let's just start there, because I believe getting it wrong cost you over $1 million. So let's just kind of pull back the curtains and see what happened. Because when we first met, again, 8 years or so ago, you were on a different track and somehow you got into outsourcing. So just let's go back in the way back when machine to about where we met in Thailand. What's your core focus back then?
My core focus was actually software that I developed back in 2008. I used to be a financial planner for 20 years. And I got out of that industry when it went stupid with regulation and compliance. And I took a couple of years off, and then one day a switch went off in my head and it said, "You're bored." I still wanted to help people with managing money, but I didn't want to get back in the regulated side of things. And so I've eventually created my own software program, which I'd had built overseas through outsourcing. And that was done in India. And that was a whole nother experience to start off with. I should have learned my lesson. But they created the software for me, and I was quite happy with how it was at the time. And then I started chasing the bright, shiny objects online, of seminars and webinars and speakers and how to do things better. And that's how we ended up in Thailand. A good friend of ours, David Kavanagh. And so I was over there for his 10-day intensive, if you like, and met a lot of people. And the back of the room had a couple of people who did outsourcing from the Philippines. David kept referring to them. And so, we ended up talking, as you do. And my focus, which should have been on my software, got distracted. So I never kept going with my software at that time, although it was always in the back of my mind. And that was how I got introduced, I suppose, directly into outsourcing.
So just kind of walk us through. So, initially, of course, you used outsourcing services in India to kind of develop the software. That was one type of outsourcing, what we call maybe, technology outsourcing. And then you started to outsource to the Philippines. What were you outsourcing to the Philippines when you first started?
Well, actually nothing. The thing was that the people that I'd met, I was on such a high that I was traveling all around the world at the time. I was off to Europe and England and even America. And so I'd met these people who were there from the Philippines, and decided I was going to go across to the Philippines and see what their operation was like, because I was very pedantic. When I was a financial advisor, I was years ahead of all the other financial advisors with the technology I invested in and everything like that. So I was doing the same thing with what I wanted to do with the outsourcing. I was very pedantic, so I went over to have a look. When I got there, I couldn't believe my eyes. I walked into the one office, and I found 14 people working in a room not much bigger. It was a little bit bigger than this, but it wasn't a very big room, and they were all crammed onto these desks working with laptops. You can imagine a laptop and a chair, and that was basically the space they had. To keep the sun out of the room, they had blankets up on the windows. There was no air conditioning. There was a fan in the corner, and these poor people were sitting there literally dripping sweat, working away on the laptops. I said to the girl who was running that particular office when they'd all gone home, and she said, "Look how neat and tidy the room looks." And it did look neat and tidy. All the desks had no laptops on. I said, "So where do you put all the laptops?" And she said, "Oh no, that's their laptops. They take those laptops home with them. They have to bring a laptop if they want a job." I said, "Are you serious?" And she said, "Yeah." And I said, "So all the clients' work is on their laptop?" And she said, "Yeah." I said, "What happens if they get robbed or it gets dropped or, lost in a flood or something like that?" She said, "Well, that's part of the risk. That's their job gone." And I said, "No, that's your client's work gone." And that horrified me so much that I decided I was going to just set up my own office. And I would have computers in the office, and they would come to work and they would work on those computers, and it would be backed up, and they would go home at night and not have to worry about bringing in their own computers. They'd get a job without bringing their own laptop. And that was how I got started.
Now, were you initially, did you go out there to start an outsourcing company, or was it more just to find some help for yourself?
Yeah, I wanted to see what it was like, because I'd heard all these stories and everything. And one of the things that I found was you could look to source a VA, and the moment you say, "Can you do?" and the answer automatically comes out, "Yes, sir."
Yeah, so this is a great teaching point, now, because again, a virtual assistant's typical answer to everything is yes, right? And so if you ask a virtual assistant, "Can you do?" Yes. "Can you do?" Yes. And I continue to tell virtual assistants I come in contact with that, look, if you have a list of 20 things that you say you can do, I'm going to assume that you're not very good at any one of them, right? That's kind of like a hint right away that if they're an expert in too many different things, they're probably mediocre at most of them. So, and I always encourage virtual assistants that, look, just get good at one or two things, because you'll price yourself much higher and be more value to a client by being good at one or two things than being a mediocre generalist at everything.
Correct. Absolutely correct. And, that was the way that I'd set the office up. When I, found out how everything was working, I thought, no, this is not going to be good for me. So what we did, their office was above a pizza shop. So we advertised that we were going to be holding a recruiting session in the pizza shop, and everybody who came along would be fed pizza and drinks. And so there was about 30 people attended the first one. There was about 30 people attended the second one. And I ended up getting a couple of people coming to work from that. But within that group, I found one lady who became my first office manager. And she was working for another company.
Let me just ask you, Nobby, were you aware at this point, because what you've just shared is a very classical entrepreneurial trait, right? Which was, you're on a path, you've just invested a whole ton of money on this software, and all of a sudden you found yourself in the Philippines. Next thing you know, you're on the verge of starting an outsourcing company. Were you aware that you had made this kind of pivot or started a sideline business, or was this kind of like you were just kind of following the flow at this point? I'm just curious where your mind was at.
I was unconsciously aware, if you like. I was aware of what I'd seen and what I wanted to be working with. So I want to come to your factory. I want to see how your people are doing the work for me, right? But I'm not happy with how your factory operates. So I'm going to set up my own factory, if that makes more sense. So it now became a totally different proposition. And not that I was going straight into, getting 14, 15 people to come and work for me in a sweatshop. I didn't even know what my office was going to look like, but I was already in the process of hiring people. But I was looking around for an office, and having had previous experience with offices, setting mine up over here in Australia, I knew what I would probably end up with, and we did. We found an office, or I found an office. totally stripped it out, stripped all the tiles off the floor, repainted all the walls, rebuilt the toilets, had male and female toilets in there, which was totally unknown. Basins, clean running water, the whole thing, and all new furniture.
I remember seeing the I can't remember if it was the opening, but I remember seeing the opening of your office, because I think you posted on Facebook. I may have even commented. You had a really nice setup, looked really clean, and lovely desk spacing out and everything else. So I remember that because at the time I was working for a different outsourcing company. I was like, oh, our friend Nobby's started a competitor of ours. So I was keeping an eye on you, buddy.
Actually, the office that you were working for was not that far away from where
right. So continue. So here you are. You're setting up basically, setting up a nice working environment for your team here. So what happened next?
And just on that particular point about the office you were working for, the manager of that office and I had coffee one day to see if I would do the work with him. But as it turned out, it wasn't going to happen. So look, the environment, the office, the people came there, they would say, then we started having, employment days on Saturdays, because they were working during the week, so they couldn't come in. So we'd be holding these same employment things, and they'd come in, they'd say, oh, I love this. You don't have to pay me any more money. I'll just come and work here. I'd be happy to do that. So, but they had to be good enough, of course. And I felt very sorry for a lot of the people, because I could see the conditions that they had and things like that. And so we ended up giving, a number of people work, and eventually it grew to a team of about 15 people. But
Rosie, out of a visit to the Philippines, you've now got this lovely office. You've got a team of 15 people. Everything's a hunky-dory, right?
Yep, beautiful. Loved it. We started off very small. We only started with about 3 people. And the office manager kept saying to me, oh, we need to have this developer. And I said, yeah, okay, fine, hire a developer, but you've got to go and find me the work to support that developer. I can't keep just paying people. And she just couldn't get that into her head. She had come from being given the work and told, get the SEO on this done. And so she was good at doing that. But when I would give her, I'd say, here's a software program. It helps you find leads. Go and get the leads, offer to do the work for them, do a sample, give them the sample, tell them that's the sort of work that you do, and do it. But she couldn't do that. She wasn't a salesperson. So unfortunately, she wasn't what I needed in that particular role. So I then had to go and find a person who could become a salesperson for me. And I thought I'd done that with a guy who wanted to leave another company that was also starting up very big in outsourcing. And he came in and promised me, yes, that's what he could do. And it turns out he was more of a bean counter. So we didn't progress very far.
Let's interject another learning point here. So, in hindsight, if you could go back to that moment, what would you have done differently? Because it sounds like you hired a couple of people that you thought, or at least told you, they could do this, but in hindsight, they couldn't. Could you have done a better job of hiring the right person at this point in time? Could that have changed the course of history? Or if we self-reflect upon ourselves, say, okay, what could I have done better in this moment? What would that look like for you?
Absolutely. I failed in my job. I didn't hire the right people. I believed what they told me they could do. And unfortunately, this is the sort of thing that you find over there in the Philippines, because they will tell you that they can do everything. And this person had come highly recommended. The first person had come highly recommended. And so it was, I think, because everybody's sort of interrelated over there, they all build themselves up. And it's not based on real experience. It's based on, I have a cousin who can do this, and they're very good. So it was a shame, because as much as they were nice people, it was my fault for not checking deeper. The guy was working for a company that was a large company. He'd been there for quite a while with them. And his role was on the basis of, getting clients in. He was higher up in the management, and therefore I took it for granted that he had the experience I needed for him to run my business. And I paid him good money to do it as well, because he wouldn't leave the other employer without getting more money. And you think you get what you pay for, and it doesn't always work that way.
So, at this time, where were you getting your clients from? Like, how were you sourcing your clients?
So I was still traveling the world, as were you, with your partner at the time, going around to seminars and that, and meeting people everywhere, and becoming celebritized, if you like. Not me, but with the other people that were around, and talking to them, and they say, "Oh, so what do you do?" And I said, "Well, I have an outsourcing office in the Philippines, and we help people with doing blah blah blah." "Oh, that's great. We could use you." There's a couple of larger or big names that came to me at the time. They said, "Okay, you run the outsourcing office?" I said, "Yep." And they said, "Okay, we need to talk to you because blah blah blah." The reason they wanted to talk to me was because I spoke English, and we were on the same level. If I had invested money to come to their event, and they ran a very big, very well-known webinar program company, and they wanted to take it to another level. So they wanted some help in the back office and everything. I said, "Yep, look, that's fine, not a problem, happy to work with you." And I said, the good thing is, by that time, I then had a new office manager, and the beauty of that particular one was that she was American and spoke English and had experience, and I felt comfortable because of her level and experience that I could source the clients and pass them on to her, and she would get the work done.
Awesome. So great. So now we've got a company. You got what you believe now is the right person, kind of at the helm of the ship. So what happened? What? How did we go from that to losing $1.5 million?
She wasn't the person I thought she was. She had left another company who I'd actually been working with through Sydney here in Australia, and she called me and told me that she was looking for a job because that particular company had gone broke because they wouldn't invest in equipment and things like that, and they'd gone broke. So she was now looking for work, and I said, "Yeah, sure. Look, I'll take you on. You speak English, you've got the experience, and you've got the knowledge." She was living back in Manila at that time, and I said, "But you're going to have to come and live in Davao, which is where my office was." She was quite comfortable with that. I paid the fares. I paid for her accommodation to put her up. And I said to her, and I could tell from the way that she talked to me, she knew what she was doing. She walked in, she could do this and that, and just went berserk. And it was like, I was blessed to have had somebody with her experience. And so I left it with her. And that was my mistake again, because you can't, the thing that I learned is you can't run these offices remotely. You can't travel the world and have somebody there and trust them to do the right thing, because she wasn't doing the right thing.
Everyone says, hindsight, is the best coach in the world, right? In the moment of time, you thought you'd find the right person. They said everything. They said the right things to you, and I've seen many entrepreneur, CEO, feel like they've got the right person in, not necessarily in outsourcing, just in business in general, and they take their eye off the ball, right?
Yeah.
And tell me if I'm wrong, because maybe your different experience here. They take their eye off the ball, or they really focus on some other aspect of what they're doing, and even though they kind of see things happening, they don't want to believe it's happening, and they kind of like, because it's like almost like, I made a mistake, but it's going to be okay. It's kind of like, it's going to be okay feel, and you continue down this path, and next thing you know, there's this huge hole you find yourself in. I don't know, is that your experience, or was it different for you?
Yeah, no, look, very much like that. I kept getting niggles coming back from clients who were saying that they'd paid their money and they weren't getting the work done. And so I'd get onto her and I'd say, look, get it done, and it would get done. And it just kept coming through time and time again. And I thought, no, this is not right. And she'd say to me, oh, no, that client hasn't given us what we needed. So there was an excuse coming back from her. And I'd go back to the client. And now I'm caught in between doing what I don't want to do, which is keeping the client happy while trying to get the work done on the other side. So eventually we would end up perhaps losing that client. They say, look, I've got to go somewhere else to get it done because it's not happening there. And I go back and say, well, why didn't it? And it's like, she didn't give us the stuff we needed. I say, okay, well, if she didn't do that, well, then we can't do the work and that's it. So I'd let it go. But there was always this thing in the back of my mind, as you say, it's a niggling thing that is something's just not working. And then I started getting calls from the staff, the odd email, the email that had no name, or the incognito that I'm a staff member, but I don't want to give you my name. When will we get paid? And it's like, what do you mean, when will we get paid? I've sent the pays over. You should have been paid. And then that just started happening more regularly as well. And then it was like the manager was telling me, oh, we don't have enough money to pay the telephone bill or the rent or whatever. And I thought, what are you talking about? I'm sending the money over. You're telling me we're getting money from the clients that I'm sending to you. And then you're telling me that, oh, the client hasn't paid. And you're telling me the client's promising to pay next month. So I'm supporting an office that's supposed to be self-sufficient with the amount of work that I'm sending them, and nothing's happening. So this is just not, something's definitely going wrong here. So, I go over there and I pay all the bills and everything like that and ask what's happening, and everything seems to be above board, although this bubbling sort of thing and this just uncomfortable feel, and the staff talking to me about, why don't we get paid on time? And I said, no, you don't get paid on time. It's not a problem. So not being there, not good. You have to be on the ball and be there.
You've got to be on the ball. People are wondering, hey, Bijal, I thought you're here to kind of promote outsourcing services. Why the hell are you painting such a bleak picture? It's like my hope of sharing this story with you is that you understand. Look, there's so many benefits of outsourcing done correctly. But there are so many lessons you can learn, even though, this particular scenario is Nobby starting up his own company. The same thing applies to you guys if you're looking to outsource. You got to keep your eye on the ball. You let the VA earn your trust. Don't just blindly give your trust because they say they can. You got to monitor the work daily, and you got to make sure that the KPIs that you've set are met. And don't just because you've hired a virtual assistant assume that your work's being done the way you want it to be done. These are just all, again, learn from two people who have seen the good and the dark side of working with VAs. Because look, a virtual assistant's job is to get your business. You feel like they're working for you, but they could be working for 10 other people. And at least in my case, Nobby, I have my VAs sign, what I call an honesty contract. I call it PACT, P-A-C-T, but part of that is an honesty contract. But we can't, as much as we emphasize the importance of, honesty, we can't reinforce that. But these are things that you as a person working with a virtual assistant have to look for. The moment you feel that they're being dishonest, you got to call them out. Don't let your emotion and but I really want to support these VAs. No, you got to wear that hat of a CEO of a HR department, and you got to call bullshit when you smell bullshit.
Absolutely, totally agree. Look, the things that I used to find out, we've, as you said, could be working for 10 different people, and they could be charging out hours. They could be, they're charging you for hours while they're working for someone else. And this was just common stuff. That's why the model that I was using was, I felt far more honest. I had no qualms whatsoever in the way that we did it, because we did it honestly and ethically. Nobody ever paid for hours while they're working somebody else's hours. The client was always catered to every step of the way. I'd rather have a VA working full time for one client than working 10 different projects in one day for 10 clients. Totally crazy.
Don't like that. And I, even what we're doing right now, we have kind of an open policy, which is, look, if we give you a client, you service them. If you happen to find a client, that's fine. We're okay with that, because we know it's going to happen. So we'd rather support that with kind of an open policy almost. But as long as they're getting the work done for our clients, then we're okay. We're kosher. But at the moment they start doubling up, or what's also known as ghosting, where a VA will get the job and then outsource it out to another person and make that difference, right? It's we don't like that. We tell them that they're not allowed to do that. And if we catch them doing that, they're cut off and blacklisted from our network. But I'm sure you've experienced all of that and more.
Oh, well, and that was, as I say, the way that I had it working. They didn't have to worry about where their income was coming from. They knew what they were getting for the whole week. So it wasn't that they had to scrounge or steal or be dishonest or whatever. All they had to do was come in and do the work. They were given a computer. They didn't have to go and find the money to buy a computer or a laptop to get the job. They were given food. They were given what a brilliant place to work. So there was never a qualm about how we did anything for clients. But Filipinos are lovely people, most of them.
Absolutely. When you get the right people, and you've earned their trust, and they've earned your trust, what an amazing relationship to have. The majority are salt of the earth people. But look, there are, in everything, there's a few bad apples, and with the number of people outsourcing now, the chances are you're going to come across them, and you've got to know how to deal with that when and if you do.
Yeah, I see them all the time. There's so many new companies popping up, offering outsourcing, and the things that they tell you, and I know what's going to go on, what's going to happen in the background.
I found this on the web. Is there any companies popping up?
I'm sure you did. So Nobby, so just kind of walk to that final stage. So what ended up happening? How did you roll out of that? And really, what was your comeback? Because look, dealing with a $1.5 million loss is couldn't have been easy. When you're in that hole, you've invested a whole bunch of money, you've really put a lot of effort, blood, sweat, and tears into something, and to see it not manifest. Just walk us through that, because I think there's a lot of learning and wisdom just from that experience alone. Look, again, I don't mean to go on about this, but as entrepreneurs, we see a lot of success stories out there. A lot of people are like, oh, my life is wonderful. And I feel a lot of people are not being really authentic about the trials and tribulations of what it's really like to be an entrepreneur, the down cycles and the up cycles. So just kind of walk us through that, because you did recover, you have recovered, you've got yourself back on track. What can we learn from your experience?
Yeah, I mean, look, I had to go over there, and it was heartbreaking. I walked in, and this particular manager had been in hospital for a while, so she was totally absent. There was nobody running the office. I walked in, I just had to close the office down, sack everybody, which broke my heart. That was 15 nice, really great people that were out of work. Fortunately, I was able to sell all my stuff off to somebody else there. And I had to pay all the outstanding bills that she'd taken the money for and spent on whatever it was, gas, telephone, and local councils and government and everything, and then come back home and I was broke. And because of that, I'd lost money over here as well. And as you say, it's about $1.5 million that I lost, and I had to recover from that. And now I was back to doing everything myself. So it took me a while to sort of get that mental thing. But there was no way knowing that I could stay down. I had software that I'd originally built, as I said at the beginning. And it was a matter of...
Let me just interject, because a lot of people right now, Nobby, are, let's not ignore the world we're living in right now. What their dream thing, their business, their project, whatever it may be, a lot of people have had to be, face the reality of the situation. Many may be facing losses in their business. Maybe they've been working on a dream project, a dream business for several years now. Maybe they're at the verge, the beginning of this year, I think a lot of people had such high hopes for this year. Maybe it was the whole 2020, right? The year of clarity, the year of vision. I know, speaking to a lot of my peers here, everyone felt really good coming into 2020, and now a lot of people having to do resets and pivoting and stuff. And I think there's a lot of learning they can get from your experience, because that fight back, just kind of walk us through what's the mindset, Don? Because I mean, losing 1.5 million. I mean, I know, and I hate to bring this up, but I want to be authentic here. People would have considered a very different path having had such a big setback. Your pride gets effing kicked in the backside. If there's one thing you did to restart the comeback process, what was that process for you?
The sun comes up tomorrow. And it's as simple as that. There was many times where I started getting up and going for walks at 4 o'clock in the morning, and I'd walk for like 7 or 8 kilometers. And one part of my walk was over a freeway, not far from here. And the number of times I'd approach that freeway and think, you know what, it wouldn't take long. All I've got to do is step over the rail in front of a truck that's coming down the freeway. And at 4 o'clock in the morning, they're not going to see you until, they probably wouldn't even know they've hit you. And then I think, well, that's not fair to my partner. She's at home, asleep in bed, and would have the police come to the door and say, hey, we found you. We found Nobby out on the freeway. And that wouldn't be right to her. And not only that, she's got the rest of her life. And my goal as the male, the alpha, and as we always have been, was to support that and provide for her. And so therefore it was no, keep walking over the other side of the freeway and get all the way back. Come in, do the work, do what was necessary to keep going, because the sun comes up and it's another opportunity. And every day is another opportunity. And if you're putting one foot in front of the other, it's a step in the right direction. If you sit down and do nothing, you're not going anywhere. Put one foot in front of the other, talk to people, do something positive, take action. Whatever it is, you've got to change that mindset. And it's not just a belief, it's a knowledge that that eventually you'll end up in the right place. And that's all that's taken me from where I was to where I am.
Thanks for sharing that, Nobby, and thanks for being vulnerable, because people say, oh, well, that's obvious, Nobby, just take one step. But look, when you're in it, that step takes a huge amount of mental energy and focus to take that step. I've been there. I know how challenging it is. So first of all, applaud you for just sharing that, and hopefully people out there are watching this and they're going through something that's similar, where they've lost, made some losses right now. Just take some heart from that. It's just take the next step. Just wake up tomorrow and take the next step. There's no awards here for celebrity glory. We are in a comeback game, and a lot of people taking advantage of the situation. A lot of people have been found themselves very fortunate of what they do in the situation, but there's absolutely no shame or blame, that you should carry alone if you're going through something that's just challenging at this time. There's a lot of us are going through that. A lot of us are just, each day. And a lot of people are saying, look, what if this is possible? What if we just project 2 or 3 years down the road and latch onto that as a possibility, as you say, the opportunity? Because that's really what it is, right, Nobby? Like, when we're going through a challenge, but yet we can dare to dream of what it's like if we just take that step every day and say, but what if this is possible? What if, yes, today I've made a loss, but in a year and a half or 2 years or 3 years, I can work towards this next thing. And we wake up and just take that step. Does that relate to where you came from as you kind of made your way back?
Yeah, look, one of my sayings is, if you wait until tomorrow, then today is a lost opportunity. You've got to do it today. You've got to take that step today. Nothing's going to hurt you, okay? Being broke doesn't mean you're going to get hurt. Being kicked in the guts, if you like, and knocked down, as long as you get back up again and give it another shot. Nobody's going to stop you from having a go. But if you don't have a go, you'll never go any further than where you are. You'll always be going backwards if you don't have a shot at it. And it's only by doing something that you can go forward. It was hard. Suicide is an option, but it's not a worthwhile option because you don't get an opportunity to correct the mistakes that you've made. And the mistakes are all in your past. You're not here to repeat the mistakes of your past. You're here to learn from the mistakes of your past and move forward. And that's one of the things that I'm here to help people with, is help them with managing their money and showing them a different way to what they're currently doing, so they've got a better tomorrow.
Let's just kind of cap off this, because you have gone back to your roots, having gone through that whole cycle of chasing that, setting something up, and then coming back to, what's your heart, what's your cause. It just kind of tells us a bit more about what it is you have come back to, because this is your bread and butter. This is what you've been doing for over a decade, maybe longer, but at least so as far as I've known you, and how you're helping people right now.
Okay, so look, COVID is a perfect example. People are caught having to spend money that they've saved, and so that's going, so everybody's in a lot of financial trouble. But well before that, and this was after the 2008 financial crisis, the GFC, that the thought had come to me when I was working with women. They would always say, I don't want to know about financial planning, insurance, or investment. I just want to know, how do I manage my daily money? And it was, spend less than you earn and pay the highest interest debt first. But they'd look at me waiting as if there was more to it than that, because being a financial advisor, you're not telling them everything. And I was like, no. So what I realized was that they needed a push button solution. I couldn't find one. I created my own. So what the software does is it shows people how to pay out their debts in less time. So a 30-year mortgage in 15 years, 12 years, 10 years. And you take the same money that you would have paid on that, and then you create your future wealth with that. And it's so easy to do that it's easier to do than not. That might sound crazy, but unlike a budgets, and they'd failed with budgets because budgets have no hope. Budgets are money in, money out. And they'd say to me, if that's all that's left on a Friday night, I don't want to know about it, because I want my glass of wine. And so what this program does is it turns around and actually gives them hope. It actually shows them what the future can look like if they apply what the program tells them to do. And it's as easy as that. Awesome.
Well, hey, Nobby, if people want to just learn more about what you do and more about your software, what's a good website to go to?
www.moneyrules, RULES, so moneyrules.com.au.
Perfect. That's easy to remember. So I'll put that in the link. Nobby, first of all, thank you so much for just joining me and having this kind of chit chat about, look, the dark side and the good side of outsourcing. Get it right, and you can, save so much time. They can help you make money in your business, but get it wrong, and it can be a curse. It can be really drag you down, and then you lose faith in it. So a few simple common sense things will keep you on the right track. Again, if you want some help, you can reach me at followupster.com. Myself and my team will promise to do our very best to keep you safe from the dark side of outsourcing. Nobby, again, thank you so much for joining me. Any last words of inspiration you have for the folks out there?
Do you know what? Outsourcing is brilliant. Do what you do best and outsource the rest.
Love it. Nobby, we have a special buzz-off wave here, so just join me as we say goodbye to you and goodbye to the viewers. Time to buzz off, Nobby. Bye for now. See you soon.
Bye. Cheers.